Where do I even start? I just start with, how's everyone doing today, guys? Oh, man. So, after a 3-week hiatus, we finally got the Season 2 finale of Amphibia, True Colors, and part of me wonders why Disney waited until last minute to pull it, only to then be like, oh, well, we just need to add there's some final scenes that may be disturbing for younger viewers. I mean, they're not technically wrong with that, but you kinda, Oh man, this episode. Oh my god, this episode. I guess the best place to start is at the beginning. So, kind of what I was expecting. We got a flashback of sorts. I thought it would be the three of Anne, Marcy, and Sasha together, a little bit more of their friendship, relationship, seeing them together, and then, it'd be like, okay, well, obviously, Sasha and Grime, they're planning to take Amphibia, so there's that, and then obviously Andreas is up to something, and obviously Marcy's up to something, and Anne's kind of in the middle of this. Nope, we don't get a friendship flashback, we get a Marcy flashback, and, oh, for freak. When you put there be some scenes will be disturbing to younger viewers, and then you introduce a flashback of Marcy discovering that the calamity box before they even found it. I mean, oh my god, this. Oh, I mean, the fact that Marcy knew, right? I mean, was, oh my god, because up to this point, we thought it was just some random accident for them. They found this box, they had no idea what it was, they opened it up, and boom. So the fact that Marcy knew what this was, even though it was a kind of a long shot in her perspective, because, magic on Earth, that doesn't exist. So the fact that she was willing to take this risk so she can be with her friends a little bit longer, because as we find out, Marcy was kind of in a tough spot. Or, you can say in tough spot, but oh boy. So, oh man, this episode. So after that flashback, we arrive at Newtopia with everyone on Joe Sparrow, and he's not having fun. It's like they kind of nearly crash into the city, and Marcy even points out that, okay, this is the cap. This is the maximum capacity for Joe. And so, yeah, they go in, and the plan for Marcy for the team was that they would have Sasha and Grime be hooded until they got to the throne room, where Marcy would tell Andreas that, hey, these guys helped us, so can you pardon them? Yeah, solid plan. I mean, if you're Sasha and Grime, actually solid plan indeed, because big shock, they go into the throne room and they take the calamity box and they attack Andreas, and eventually they take over, and you would expect exactly what happens next. Anne gets furious because once again she put her trust into Sasha, and once again Sasha betrays it. So, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. Yeah, so, oh man. So it's Sasha and Grime taking over. Grime roars out towards Amphibia and basically has that's the signal for the Toads to attack, both in the city and the army that's on its way. And so they open up the gates, and now we're on the clock, because if the Toad army gets through the gates, then pretty much all is lost. So, luckily for Anne, Marcy, Pop, Polly, Sprig, Frobo, well, let's see, Lady Olivia, they get away because, Lady Yunan saves them, and I love this. It's like, who are you? And she's like, I am General Yunan. And then Lady Olivia's like, she's General Yunan, and she's very big deal. Moving on. You know how to fix it. Also completely forgot to mention when Marcy and Anne, when Anne was snapping at Sasha, she mentioned to Sasha that she was done being her friend, and Sasha basically decided, okay, fine. She then opens up the calamity box because, you know, she's thinking, okay, all I gotta do is open it, and you two will be sent back. But it does nothing. She opens the box, nothing happens. I originally thought it was because because the blue gem wasn't fully charged, that's the reason why it wasn't gonna work. Which isn't entirely wrong, but we find out that even though it's, I guess it's like a phone, it's like it doesn't have to be 100% charged to work, so, but Sasha just didn't know how to use it, which I guess makes sense. Sasha. So, at first it seems like they're going to be taken to the brig with King Andreas, but General Yuan comes in and saves them, and but of course Andreas is still captured, and with the Toad army on the way, and the Toads within the city taking over the city, there's a lot to unpack, and even Marcy throws in how they have to fix their emotional baggage, along with crafting a political structure so that way this rebellion never happens again. So yeah, there's a lot going down, but Anne gives a motivational speech telling him that they've been through a lot, they can do anything, and they have no idea, and the Toads have no idea what they're dealing with, and we get pretty much this multi-team takedown of the Toads and liberating the city, so Newtopia. So the plan basically is, obviously they have to save King Andreas, stop the Toads within the city, and close the gate before the army shows up. So 3 teams. Team 1, and in Sprig, they go to the tower to close the gates. Team 2, Polly, General Yuan, and Frobo go to attack the Toads in the city, and I love the way they do it too. So Anne's like, Polly, you're gonna go and take down the Toads within the city, and so they cut to Polly, the Toads playing a card game. Polly jumps in, lands, pulls out a dagger or a kunai, and she's like, "Get ready to feel the pain!" And of course the Toads laughed at her, but then General Yuan and Frobo land next to her, and I love how then we get a voiceover Anne being like, "Oh yeah, by the way, take Yuan and Frobo with you." So that was funny. And then there's Hop, Lady Olivia, and Marcy going to save King Andreas, and it's funny because Hop freaking Hop does his acting shtick again, and it was so funny because not only is it over dramatic, but it works on the Toads. They're just bawling their eyes out to him, and I loved it. It was so good. But all while this is going on, Sasha and Grime are still in the throne room, and Sasha is starting to feel the confliction with herself because Anne, with Anne saying she doesn't want to be your friend anymore, it is something because when it comes to Sasha's character, Battle of the Bands, Sasha talked about how if she's not in control, she will go nuts. So obviously she's afraid of not being in control of everything because she doesn't know, because that way she's able to, she makes sure what happens is because she made it happen. She's afraid of change. That's the big thing. And so I wonder if we're going to get a little more backstory with Sasha as to why that is, because again, we saw her as a little kid and what she was like then. It may not have been much, but she does have good. And we see it later in the episode, but meanwhile, Sasha gets another sword courtesy of Captain Grime. And at first, it's rather, Sasha's happy, but again, the confliction of Anne and everything she's done up to that point is kind of getting to her, but Grime tries to distract her by saying, oh, let's take down this mural and redecorate. And, if I was a big bad villain, why would I have a tapestry of basically my most darkest deeds underneath the tapestry of the most joyous of things? Because seriously, Grime just looks at the tapestry of Andrea sitting with all the most adorable things in the world, and he's like, ugh, that's ugly. He rips it down, and then you just have Andrea, so he's like, oh yeah, pile of frog bones at the bottom, you have the rays of the calamity box going up to the calamity box, Andrea's in the middle, you have this fire, pain, destruction, looks like something Emperor Bells would have in his castle, and it's like, okay. But what I liked about that is the irony in it, because Sasha has completely lost Anne's trust, and all of a sudden now she has to convince Anne that Andreas is the bad guy, which obviously doesn't work because, Sasha, fool me once, shame on you, fool me twice. So she goes to Anne, and of course she tries to tell her, wait, this is a thing, Andreas is the bad guy, but Anne doesn't believe her, and the two get into another fight. But, with Sasha with the dual-wielding sword and furious this time, there's a race against the clock because she has to close the gates, and not to mention, little upgrade on the animation. It's a really cool fight. I thought it was definitely better than the tower fight. I mean, the tower fight felt more intense, because it was the first time that they were truly fighting each other. This time around, it was more of just the, what's gonna happen, and you're not. Oh yeah, all the while Sprig and Grime have a fight. And it's so ridiculous. I'm thinking, Grime could wipe the floor with this kid. And he should have, but the way Sprig deals with him does kind of make sense. It would be how Sprig deals with him. He is small enough to avoid his attacks because it's a big heavy brute going up against a small speedy kid, There is an advantage to that. And of course Grime just, God, I felt bad for Grime in this moment. So Grime has Sprig on the ground, and Sprig fires his slingshot, and it's a stone, and it hits Grime in his good eye. Grime drops the hammer, and it lands on his face. It's like, ugh. And then Sprig picks up the hammer, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm not as weak as you think." Because it's a rocket propelled hammer. So the hammer starts flying in the air, and Sprig, since he's so light and weak, he can't control it, so he starts flying around. But then he lets go, and the hammer lands back on Grime's face. Oh my god, I couldn't stop laughing. But that's how Sprig deals with Grime. And Sasha and Anne, on the other hand, Sasha does the exact same trick that Anne did on her in the season 1 finale, and that's, to kick the sword out of her hand. And she does that but then Anne outsmarts her by quickly going around back, grabbing the cape, and wrapping it around her. Edna Mode. Listen to Edna Mode, Sasha. No games. I'm sorry. I had to say that because, come on. Yeah, you gotta be smart, right? So, they close the gate, they save King Andreas, stop all the toads. But it's not over, because we got a third act left to go, and oh my god, does the third act go. So they return to the throne room, and Anne gives King Andreas the box, even though Sasha told her no, saying you can't trust him. But Anne gives it to Andreas anyway, and Andreas then basically is like, alright, this is the gist, I'm the bad guy. I mean, that's kind of what it is. He really spills it. I mean, for at least why he's doing what he's doing. He's like, so, a thousand years ago, when Andreas was still a young king, so he lives for a long time, he said that Amphibia thrived on the technology that came from the Calamity Box. So they were able to use the Calamity Box to power everything. It was like a futuristic thing with the factories, and it really is Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild with this. I mean, it's crazy. But he said how he used to have two best friends, a toad and a frog. One of them looks a little similar to Sprig, so maybe some ancestry stuff there. But then Andrew says that he was deceived, that they left, that he lost them, but he also lost the Calamity Box, and all of a sudden they entered the kind of like this dark age, I guess. And yeah, I mean, technically speaking, that's not, I would understand, but at the same time, it's like perfectly kind of reflects Sasha, Marcy, and Anne's situation, you know? I mean, Andreas, I guess, is Sasha in this point. Like, he lost his two friends, so what does he do? He becomes a control freak. He wants to make sure that he has the power, and what his goal in mind is, he wants to use the Calamity Box to not only get the power back that he once had in Amphibia, but he also wants to continue what his ancestors started. And what his ancestors did was conquer worlds. And so you kind of put the pieces together on that with, he's going to use the Calamity Box to invade other worlds, starting with Earth. And oh boy. And also, we just get a flying city, you know, like, he puts the box on this pedestal and it powers up the city, and all of a sudden it starts flying in the air. It's like, dang. And then, oh yeah, did I forget to mention it has a Death Star laser? Well, I mean, it doesn't have Death Star laser because it doesn't blow up a planet. It blows up one of the Toad Towers. I mean, like, dang. It was, oh my god, like, so it really goes way downhill. And of course, Anne is freaking out because she's like, oh my god, we got duped. And speaking of getting duped, Marcy, oh boy. So Marcy, of course, is completely baffled by Andreas all of a sudden because, you know, 1 minute Andreas is the happy, nice king of the world, and all of a sudden he's this big overlord that now has futuristic weapons and a robot army because the factory started back up and all the robots that were being built there came to Andreas's aid. Not looking good. And of course Marcy is kind of freaking out, saying like, whoa, this wasn't the plan, this isn't what you said. And of course even Andreas is like, sorry kid, you got duped. And this, of course, is when Anne and Sasha are like, wait, what? What do you mean plan? What are you talking about? And of course, Andreas is like, are you gonna tell him? Oh, I'm gonna tell him. So Marcy explains how she wanted, like, Andreas was going to let them visit other worlds besides Amphibia and be like, and obviously, and I don't mind that idea, but I mean, you know, like the sense of urgency of returning home after being gone for several months. Like, this hasn't been an easy trip for them. Sure, they've made a lot of memories. They've grown so much. They've met amazing people. But they've been gone from home and they've been trapped here. That's kind of the other point. Marcy, you know, obviously she has her reason, and Anne and Sasha at first don't see that, but then, of course, Andrea spills the beans and being like, isn't it odd? It feels like one of you knew more about this than you let on. As if you knew what it was capable of. And it's like, yeah, it's like, he basically reveals that Marcy knew about the Calamity Box and what it was capable of to Sasha and Anne. And you can understand what happens next. Sasha and Anne are just baffled, they are betrayed, and it's such a weird thing, because you think, like, for Anne to see not only Sasha betray her, but to find out that Marcy is the reason why they are here in the first place. It's just like, boom, 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 right in the chest. And then, of course, all Marcy can do is explain herself, and so we find out that Marcy, her father got a job out of state, which meant that she was going to move away, and thus possibly never see Anne and Sasha again. So, of course, she was afraid to move away. She was afraid to change. So basically, this is kind of like Mabel in Gravity Falls. Like, when summer was coming to an end, she was afraid of going back to home, growing up, you know, all of that, going through high school, and so she wanted to just stay in this fantasy world, where here Marcy saw the opportunity to escape, literally escape her world and enter a new one, find a new world to explore, all of that. So yeah, but she wanted to rope her friends into it, and man. So yeah, it's crazy, because all of a sudden you really do have a divide between the three. At first it was just Anne and Sasha, you know, you had that divide, and Marcy was kind of like the bystander there. But now you truly do have a divide between the three. At least that's what I thought, because Anne is able to bring everyone together and saying, like, okay, we all made mistakes, we all have our differences, we all have our issues, but you are a bad person. Like, basically, like, she understands the big picture, that despite their differences, they have to stop Andreas. And so they all team up and they battle the robots, and Andreas is like, okay, fire sword. Like, it's like if a lightsaber had fire. It's just like he just whips it out, bam. It's cool though. And so we get this cool battle with the robots, and then Andreas takes it a step further he starts by trying to crush Polly, but Frobo is able to save her, and Andreas is like, oh, it's effective. He literally crushes Frobo, and it's like, Frobo, you were built up so much throughout the first half of the season, and now you just get squashed by Andrew. Seriously, what was up with that? But then it's weird, because then it's followed up by Andreas trying to once again kill Polly. Like, he's like, oh, don't be sad, you're next. He goes for the punch, but then Polly reveals that she now has legs. Like, she's able to run around, and that's a weird moment. Like, even Sprig's like, I'm kind of conflicted about this, because it's like, on one hand, yeah, it's like, Frobo just died, but Polly just got her legs. Happy, sad? So Polly goes for the calamity box, takes it, and so the city slowly starts to fall back down. But then Andreas then has another trick up his sleeve, or in this case, he has a Sprig up his sleeve. I had to say it. He took Sprig, and he's holding him over one of the windows, and is threatening to drop him all the way down to Earth, or down to the Amphibia, all the way down to Amphibia. If they don't put the box back. And so Anne, not wanting Sprig to get hurt or die, she tells Polly to put it back, and she does. But then Andreas is like, you know, he's like, Anne's like, please don't, I care so much about him, he's my best friend. And Andreas is like, you know, that's the thing about friendship, it hurts more when they go. It's like, oh, and he drops him. And you get the dramatic music, you don't get somebody to lean on. I'm sorry, that was just a weird thing in that episode, in Reunion, but this, oh man, this, it is, because, again, you have this war, you had the, you know, like, scenes might be disturbing, and I'm like, is this one of the scenes? And of course, and oh man, I got teary-eyed at this part. We get some flashbacks with Anne and Sprig, and most of them were, you know, what you would expect, you know, them meeting, them having some fun, spraying against the world, all that. But the one that got me was the end credit, you know, like, when they're rolling the credits and you have Anne and, or the outro, I should say, with Anne and Sprig, you know, they're leaning up against that part of that small wall outside the Plantar house, and they're just reading under the stars. That was in that. That was one of the flashbacks. You see that, and it's like, oh my goodness. And of course, with all of this, Anne just just activates something inside of her, because we see the Calamity, we see the blue gem starting to glow, and all of a sudden we see this kind of misty thing going towards Anne, and all of a sudden you see Anne like go Super Saiyan Avatar state kind of thing. She literally activates some power. She glows, her, like, you get, like, these antler kind of things, and you see the leaves light up, you see your hair light up, you see your eyes light up, and all of a sudden, it's so crazy, and it's so cool. And she's just going all over the place. She's destroying the robots left and right. She gives Andreas a run for his money, nearly could have killed him, and all the while she's screaming, bring him back, you know, because Sprig was one of her best friends, and you really saw the relationship between the two grow since that first episode. And just, I gotta say, the music was epic. TJ Hill, you are killing it with this in Owl House. Speaking of which, excited to see season 2 of Owl House in a few weeks. I don't know why I said months. But Anne isn't able to give like a final blow. She falls out of the Calamity power and passes out, and Andreas is like, she can't control it. But then, of course, she's like, you still got the gift, kid, but that means you can no longer live. Just that line, you know, oh, so that could possibly be a fact. That is definitely a factor, because if Anne has this power, is there a possibility that Marcy and Sasha can get the power? Like, you know, like, what if they, like, activate it again and, like, somehow some Calamity power goes into Marcy and Sasha? That would be cool, because you would just have this epic Triforce. It's like Powerpuff Girls meets Avatar meets Dragon Ball. I don't know. And then we get something crazy. So Marcy takes the Calamity box, activates it, and tells Anne and the Plantars to get to the portal. Sasha and Grime, they hold off Andreas, but Andreas is able to get them, like, knock him out. And Hop and Polly and Sprig, they get into the portal, and they even get Frobo's head there as well. And before Marcy can do anything, we get this scene may be disturbing for some kids. So what's the best way to put it? Okay, how about this? When you saw the first episode of Amphibia, did you think, there'll be some point in this series where you'll see a teenage girl get stabbed in the back by a giant dinosaur-like monster with a flaming sword? No? Because that's exactly what happens. And they show it too. Like, it's like they start with, you hear the cut, you hear the stab, but you have all of Marcy's head, but then they pan down and they show the blade through her chest. But it's a flaming sword, there isn't any blood. So you're like, yeah, it's still graphic. I mean, it's still disturbing and graphic, but it's not too graphic. But then, of course, Andreas is like, now look what you made me do. And then, of course, Marcy, in her last breath, saying she's sorry for everything, drops the box closes, thus sending Anne and the Plantars to, where else? Earth. And that's where it ends. Oh, man, oh, my God. Oh, I mean, well, it doesn't end there, because we do get a end credits scene, and, I think part of the reason, I think we can look at it for two different things. One, this is probably Matt, like, saying, like, okay, fine, thank you for letting us finally premiere True Colors, but we're gonna add this because, come on, we deserve something, we deserve this at the end. But at the same time, it also confirms something else. And what this is the intro for Season 3. We get the new intro, and it's what you would expect. It's now, they flip the script, you know, it's like, it's not Anne and Amphibia anymore, it's Anne and the Plantars on Earth. So we get, it's pretty much beat for beat the same intro, except Earth stuff. Along with some Andreas sending in some robots to take him out, along with some agency people, which I'm guessing not too surprised, because, you know, frogs that talk, not normal. But I think the reason why we get this intro is to confirm one thing, and that Marcy's technically technically not dead. And I say technically because she's in this, she's in a tube, she's in a tube, she's got a bunch of tubes strapped for her, kind of like the Luke Skywalker thing in Empire Strikes Back, you know, after he nearly died on Hoth. And Han saved him, like, all that, and so basically that, and speaking of Empire Strikes Back, I feel like this needs to be a thing in TV shows now, where it's like, if you're gonna do a 3-season, if you're gonna do a trilogy, either of a movie or a TV series, the second season, or the second one has to be dark, and it has to end dark. Because think about it, Avatar: The Last Airbender, you had Crossroads of Destiny, that ended pretty dark. You had Empire Strikes Back, that ended pretty dark. You have True Colors for Amphibia, that ended pretty dark. And I guess through all of this, I gotta say, I'm excited for the 3rd season. I mean, man, this show is amazing, and I mean, I'm excited for Owl House Season 2, especially when that intro dropped. We saw the upgrade in the bud. We saw the upgrade in animation. You know they're really going to let Dana do her thing in the 2nd season of Owl House. And if they are able to pull off the 2nd season as well as Amphibia did, I think we're going to have a really hard time saying which show is better. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm having a hard time saying which show is better right now, but considering Amphibia is an entire season ahead now, they kind of have the advantage. And, oh, man, I gotta say, Matt Braley, oh my goodness, this is amazing. You and your team have done an amazing job, and also I want to say I'm sorry you had to have a 3-week hiatus with this finale. But I think I can say it all. I think I can say speak for the fans when I say it's worth it. It was worth the wait, because this finale was freaking epic. Easily the best episode in the series so far, in my opinion. Easily the best episode. So yeah, that was the season 2 finale of Amphibia, and I don't know what to do right now. I mean, obviously, I'm gonna go through a lot of things, check out the season 3 intro. I might post it on my channel, I don't know yet. I mean, I posted the Owl House season 2 intro because, I mean, it was so... I mean, even though it had the same music, it was very different, at least in the first half, you know, because you had the intros with the group, you know, Luce, Ida, Willow, Gus, and Amity. They were really cool, and you got to see their upgraded animation. It's so, my god. But this is kind of this is still the same, but it still follows the same beats. But I mean, who am I kidding? These 2 shows are amazing, and Amphibia right now, oh my god. Alright, so I think I've been talking for long enough, so that's it for this. Thank you guys for watching. If you liked it, leave a like. If you want to leave a comment, leave a comment. If you want to subscribe, subscribe. You don't have to. I'm just saying. And with all that said, I will see you in the next video. Oh, man.